Welcome to the Discover with Sbenati podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sbenati, a cosmetic and family dentist in London, Ontario. Today I speak with Ali, the Soulful Poet.
The concrete jungle, I'm just pumping all this heavy weight. With so many different roads, see, I'm just trying to pave mine.
He's a licensed teacher in Ottawa, poet, rapper, lyricist, and producer.
Trying to find my way, but the highways got me speeding past the signs that were once so clear on the boulevard. Were
he has made it to the top 10 most slept on Canadian hip-hop and R&B artists, has been nominated for the Spirit of the Capital Youth Award, has won Album of the Year Award, nominated for Entertainer of the Year and Artist of the Year. He has performed on platforms such as YLTCon, which is a youth-led initiative, and more recently, the Yellow Let's Talk Virtual Cafe. He performs internationally, has recently released his incredibly amazing single, Island.
I came from the dark, I ain't afraid of no shade. Even as a child, I ain't playing no games. All on my own, had to find my place. I'm chilling on an island and do my own thing. I came from
making headlines and waves all over social media. He grew from 1.5k followers to almost 10k followers in less than a year. And I personally met him recently, and he's an incredibly humble and very, very nice and caring gentleman. Thank you so much for joining me, Ali.
Thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. I'm humbled. Probably that's probably top 3 introductions I've ever received. So.
I want it to be I want it to be number 1.
It's right there. It's right there. It's right up there. It's competing. Definitely competing.
Awesome. Today we speak about discovering your true identity in a world where being fake is prized. Now, Ali, you're a poet and a rapper. Your poetry reflects faith and struggle. Your lyrics have powerful messages, I've listened to them myself, of overcoming bullying, facing challenges, and holding on to the faith. To some degree, you remind me of what Tupac raps about, which is justice, troubled neighborhoods, the struggles of the ghetto, and he also raps about faith and family. How much have you struggled, or how much have you encountered in terms of struggle growing up?
That's an interesting question, because there's a few different ways that I can go about answering that question, because I feel as though if we look at, comparing ourselves to the people who live in less fortunate countries or less fortunate situations, then I may not have struggled as much. But regardless, I feel as though everyone is tested equally in a lot of ways. That's just through my faith. I believe everyone is tested and everyone struggles in different ways. So in my case specifically, it would be a lot of identity crises, a lot of bullying, as I mentioned in my lyrics, a lot of growing up, not necessarily learning what the right relationships looked like, or how to carry a proper relationship, whether that be the example set by my parents or my friends or my parents' friends or even my teachers growing up. There were always flaws that I picked out that brought me struggle, because I was confused. I mean, I look up to these people, and so why can't I fully look up to them 100%? Why are there these holes that I'm poking? And other struggles, being a first-generation immigrant in a first-generation household is an extreme sport to handle. It's not easy. And just simply growing up in a country where your parents aren't familiar, and I'm the eldest child. I'm the first child in the family, so I go through everything head first.
So did you grow up in Ottawa? Like, is that, you weren't born in Ottawa because you said you're first generation, but where were you born? Let's start there.
Born in Libya,
okay.
Where my parents had met, and came to Canada, landed in Toronto, 1999. So I was about 2 years old, or a year and a half or so. And started off in Toronto for about a year, but then my parents decided to redo their degrees because their degrees weren't validated in Canada. So they redid their degrees, and they came to Ottawa for that, since the universities here were accepting of them. We just I've stayed in Ottawa since then. So I've basically been raised in Ottawa.
And being in Ottawa, is this where you encountered bullying? So people were picking on you based on your name, based on the way that you looked? Were you in a population that was mostly, Caucasian?
So I grew up around people who are also immigrants, who are also first generation immigrants, second generation, some even third generation. And the mentality in a lot of ways in the areas I grew up is very dog eat dog world. It's very alpha male. And I was always a bigger guy growing up. I was always taller, bigger. Um, and so people had this idea that I had to be of a certain persona. I had to act a certain way. And when I didn't, they'd be disappointed, and I would be a target for shame, mockery, and all the above. Um, so that was the big thing. And also, I was always someone on the art side of things who was a revolutionary. I mean, I don't see many Middle Eastern poets and artists really tackling the issues I hope to tackle, and I'm tackling right now. And the backlash I've received from my own community, of my own people, due to their misunderstanding of what my mission is also a cause for bullying till this day.
So what is your mission? I mean, if it's something so powerful that it's causing other people to gain attention and pay attention to you, what is that message, and why is it causing people to bully you because of it?
Well, my message is really encompassing, and I could go on and on with the stuff I want to do with my art and my reach. But the main
Please
thing
do.
is, sorry.
Please do.
Oh, of course. Okay, sounds good. I guess I'll begin with starting off how the music industry and hip hop and music in general. I feel like there's a gap between the lower class and the higher class, like socioeconomically. So you have these rappers that rap about the struggle, the ghetto, the really tough life, and then you also have the artists who talk about the mansions and the lavish lifestyle, right? But there's a middle class of people who fill up most of the population in Canada and in the US at least. It's working class people and youth who also struggle, who also go through identity crises, who go through struggling in broken homes, struggle simply going to school, and things that we take for granted but are still struggles nonetheless that need to be brought to the table. And being an Arab first generation immigrant, there's a lot of issues I've faced that have just been swept under the table. And it's not just me. I realized growing up that, hey, you experienced the same thing too. Like your parents did that as well. Like my parents did that as well. So there's a lot of cultural things that need to be brought to the surface and need to be talked about, which bridges my connection with the Yellow Let's Talk, because they're doing the same thing. And it's sort of been like a match made in heaven in that sense. But yeah, like I really want to highlight and to magnify the struggles of immigrants in the West and living decent lives, but they still struggle, and what those struggles are, because no one tends to talk about those.
Right. So you talk about all these things that our parents coming from a foreign country and trying to raise us here, which to them is a foreign country. To us right now, it's not foreign.
It's home.
Yeah, it is home. Like I can't think of living anywhere else. So what are those issues? Those issues that are being swept underneath the table, as you mentioned. What are those kind of issues, and what kind of thing do you think other people are struggling with?
In a lot of ways, it's a mix of just mentality, norms, socially. I grew up with parents who were always paranoid of making social connections due to just their upbringing. They were taught to never trust anyone. And it was difficult to bring someone in the home. And the more I grew up, the more I realized why it was like that. But I also realized why I'm not like that. Financially as well, the way they hold on to their earnings and their income, because there's always that paranoia that we might go back home, this might happen, and there's always that uncertainty. And even norms when raising a child that I don't see happening in this society, but are very common back home. Whether it be instilling fear in a child, or instilling the common like, Baba, can I have this? Inshallah, and inshallah means no. The common things like that, where it was very much move on to the next day. The way the mentality is get to the next day and just live day by day and try to just survive to the next one. Whereas a young kid like me, I always wanted to understand, what's tomorrow, and what's next week, what's the year after, what's to expect in my life. And the more I grew, the more it hurt. But then after a while, it brought me peace, knowing that I had to be the groundbreaker. I had to be the one that paved the way myself. because my parents didn't have the answers.
Right, and that's wow. That like you hit the nail on the head because that's the experience of most people growing up, and I mean, regardless of whether or not you come from an immigrant family or not. I mean,
Yeah,
identity
definitely.
crisis is something that a lot of people face, and believe it or not, people face well into their mid and late ages.
Oh,
So
definitely.
yeah, so
100%.
for you to be self-aware and for you to know yourself, it's something that not many people experience because a lot of people struggle with it
Yeah.
throughout their life.
And one thing I think a misconception about knowing yourself is that there's a fixed understanding of knowing yourself. When you know yourself, it's over. But in reality, it's not. I'm learning about myself every single day. I have the foundation set up. I know who I am. I know my identity, and I know what I represent, and I know my mission. But that doesn't mean I can't change my goals, my even parts of my personality and habits and things like that. Just because I say that I know myself doesn't mean I'm fixed on myself. There's a difference.
Absolutely true. So how do you advise other people? Youth. You're a young guy. You're what, 24, 20,
22.
23? 22.
Yeah.
So you're 22, very young guy. You have your, very bright future.
Thank you.
For people that are younger than you, okay? Because that's where really it starts. People that are younger than you and people that are, coming up and, facing the teenage years and, they're faced with all this peer pressure and the bullying and now all the social media and the influence on social media. Where do people find their place?
There's a lot of different ways that aren't being accessed as much as I believe they should be. Having proper mentors, connecting with the right people who are older than you to give you that guidance, whether it be parents, relatives, or even just someone who you can trust and to talk to. And luckily, I grew up with a lot of really good mentors who inspired me. And another thing is spending time with yourself and learning to be comfortable by yourself. A big transition I had to face going from high school into university was the fact that in high school I was surrounded by my friends every day. There was a comfort level to that. But once I hit university, I was surrounded by thousands of people, but didn't know a single soul, and I felt lonely. So a part of knowing yourself is being comfortable with your own self, and I think also not judging yourself, because especially entering the high school teenage years and growing up, even at young adulthood, you will fail. You will fail and you will make mistakes. And a lot of times the way we're taught about failure is that it's over. Like it's horrible. Like it's like failure is the worst thing. You can't afford failure, which is what our parents were raised on. But in reality, failure is very normal. It's healthy. It's good. And changing that mentality that, hey, I'm going to struggle. I'm going to make decisions that are wrong. It's not about how I hide them or get mad. It's about how I bounce back from them.
Those are really good advice. Really, really good piece of advice. It's really important to have a mentor because
Definitely.
mentors are people that have gone through the struggle, right?
Yeah,
And so if you go through and you find a mentor, at least they'll tell you, watch out for this. They probably won't tell
exactly.
you don't do this, but they'll say
Exactly.
if you decide to do this, watch out because these might be the consequences. Um,
100%.
so so yeah, so having mentors is really, really important. And you mentioned about being comfortable of being alone. We're actually human beings are wired for the majority of the part to not want to be alone. They're wired to actually want some kind of interaction, something, whether it's through social media for the introverts, whether it's through going outside and meeting people. You can't do that right now because of COVID, but for the
Yeah.
extroverts are, this is the worst time for them, COVID
Yeah.
quarantine, because they love to be with people, and I know a lot of people like that, and they're struggling because that's their personality. Like they look forward to meeting people. So being alone is not something that many people can actually face, especially
Definitely.
when you're so young and so full of energy.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I mean, you found your way through rap, and me scrolling through your social media, trying to find out more about you. I mean, this was only recent that you basically came up on it, right? Like, I'm sure it's not something that that's something that you just tripped on. I'm sure it's a passion that's been inside of you for a while, but you kind of just started exposing yourself to it more and more, and exposing the world to yourself, to your personality more and more.
Definitely.
Is rap, because you chose rap, you could have chosen any genre,
Yeah.
but is rap a way to express yourself and to let others know that it's okay to be who you are?
Yes, like flat out, yes, 110%. I think it's one of the most direct and one of the most clear ways of expressing yourself. In a lot of ways, singing and other genres. Not to bash them, I love all genres of music, but um, I don't think any of them are as clear cut and as hard hitting as rap can be, and spoken word can be. Both of those are very much um, all about content rather than about tune or melody. Um, so that's why I resorted to it. I grew up a storyteller. I used to
Mhm.
remix fairy tales when I was about 7 years old. I changed fairy tales that are like Jack and the Beanstalk, or excuse me, Three Little Pigs and whatnot. And I changed the ending, and then my mom would get me to say them out loud. And from there, I sort of developed this passion for storytelling. I tell stories. I do it in class when I was a grade 2 or grade 3, and then over time, it became performing it. And I loved how one person can stand on a stage and captivate an entire audience. That baffled me and still baffles me till this day. And that's something I try to achieve through my words.
That's phenomenal. So what kind of thing? I mean, I know that you're connecting with your inner self, and you're connecting with your past experiences and your current experiences. But what other, struggles do you think other youth are going through?
um well, making friends and understanding who their group is and what their niche is, or who the people they want to surround themselves with is, because in a lot of ways growing up, no one really knows who their friends should be or what they look like. They just want friends. At the end of the day, it's very much like surviving through high school with friends. But over time, understanding that this type of friend pushes me, this type of friend holds me back, this type of friend motivates me to do this thing, the other one does that thing. um, uh, and another thing is finding those mentors and finding the people that we trust, and sometimes trusting too much in people and expecting the most out of them. I remember that was a big issue with me growing up. I would put my trust in a mentor, and then the second they would disappoint me, and it wouldn't even be the greatest disappointment, it could be something really simple, I'd get really down and I'd rethink, okay, everything they've said, do I still take that? Do I still trust that? Do I still move on with that? How do I handle this? So understanding that learning is a process that everyone goes through every single day of life, and accepting that, um, and finding ways to humble yourself. Because as a young teen, you're out here feeling like you're the macho man or the macho girl, or the alpha male or alpha girl, and the number one in the crew, and you're that friend who gets the most attention in your friend group and that kind of thing. Um, Realizing that's trivial, and it might bring validation to yourself and confidence, but in the long run, it's you who you're competing against, not everyone else.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So much wisdom at
Thank
22
you.
years of age. I think that has a lot to do with you being a storyteller and you being a rapper,
I think,
because
yeah,
you have to be very aware of not only yourself, of your surroundings, and
definitely.
of what's going on. You're a lot more aware than the majority of 22-year-olds. I'll tell you that right now.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
talk to us about your single. So you have your single. It's called Islands.
Yes.
What inspired you to name it Islands, and what's the message there?
So Island, fun tracks I've ever had to create. It was so much fun because it really didn't feel like it was me writing it. It was very much just like my all that I had built up growing up was just spilt on that track. Every single line was calculated, but it wasn't necessarily calculated by my head. It was calculated by my heart. Um, and so the concept of it, so Islands, is basically how I felt growing up. I'm an only I'm a first child, eldest child in a first generation household in a different country, foreign land. Had to find my way out of this, so I felt like I was on an island with no one to really help me in a lot of ways. I'm just looking and I see nothing. I might see land far away, but that's far away from me. I can't see it, and that was the metaphor I ran with. Um, and if you check out the music video on YouTube,
I
it's
do.
it's me tied to a chair, pretty much, and I can't get out. And it's two parts of me. There's the good side of me that's trapped, and the bad side of me, which is wearing the darker jacket, that's trying to take over my thoughts. And that brighter side of me that's tied shows no fear, and that darker side of me is trying to show even less fear, trying to intimidate me. So it's that yin yang struggle with the good in me and the bad in me, and realizing that both are there, and it's a constant battle.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I really loved it. I loved it. I saw it. I love the message behind it. I think everyone should watch it and really reflect on it. What is it? Is it available on iTunes? Because I didn't look there, but is it available on iTunes?
All my music is available on all streaming platforms.
Okay.
Make sure to check out Islands and all future releases for sure.
Awesome. Now I was going through your Instagram, and you don't have that link. You know how there's like a link tree, and you can like link all your different social media platforms. Do you have some kind of link like that people can click on?
I do. So what I do is sometimes when I release a new song, I simply put the YouTube link, because Spotify and the streaming platforms take a little bit longer to upload the songs. So if I have a release date, it'll take longer. So I put out the YouTube because it's the quickest one available. But like today or tomorrow, that link tree will be back up because I do have that.
Okay, awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Now, just lastly, just out of curiosity, this conversation has been excellent. I'm sure it helped a lot of people, especially the youth. I'm sure it did. Now, I see your production. I mean, you have really good production. You're a videographer, and the post-production is really amazing. Who does all that?
So I'm lucky. In the city of Ottawa, we have some really under the radar talented artists who are into the post-production and whatnot. So I'm part of a collective called Dreamland. It's a collective in the city that's recently been assembled, and it's got some of the best artists in the city and some of the best videographers in the city. So they're a lot easier to access in that way. But for my first album, I wasn't part of the collective, so I reached out to Ben Telford Visuals, a super talented videographer. Anyone who's interested in looking for affordable and reasonable videography opportunities, he's the guy. And Quest, who's basically the head of the collective, or the creator of the collective. His name's Quest, and he sort of started Dreamland out of his basement, and it's become one of the biggest movements in the city of Ottawa now. So he does a lot of videography as well.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And just before we end, I do want to ask you, where do you see yourself going with this? I mean, you're a teacher, right? Like, you're a licensed teacher in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So you're a teacher, but you do this side hustle on the side, as the name implies. But the side hustle is actually like what people usually take on as a full-time thing, right? Like being a rapper, someone who wants to actually make it out as a rapper in the music industry, which we all know the music industry is extremely cutthroat.
Definitely.
So where do you see yourself going in the next, let's say, 5 years, and how do you plan to get there?
Okay. In the next 5 years, I would hope that my side hustle becomes my main hustle. And that doesn't mean that I stop teaching. I always love teaching. I don't believe I have to be a teacher to teach. So if and teaching is the whole point of me teaching in my eyes, and my motivation to do so is to connect with that younger generation. It keeps me young, and through my art, it helps me learn slang that they use. Like I'm always up with it, like I be talking with my friends and I say a slang word and they're like, what does that mean? Like, all the kids are saying it, man. Me pushing, it's a really easy way to market myself, that a lot of people don't realize. But hopefully my artist journey grows into something that I can rely on full time, and support a family and support an entire fan base, hopefully. And I don't ever want to stop teaching through my stories.
Any last words that you want to impart on the audience before we conclude this?
Yeah, you can do anything. You literally can. As long as you push yourself out of the box and you just take that first step. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be attractive, and it's not going to make you feel good either. But take that first step. Trust the process, because it's not just consistency, it's consistent quality. So keep pushing yourself. try to be the best you could be, and know that you can surprise yourself. Don't set limits upon yourself. Let yourself surprise you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, if you want to get in touch with Ali, you can through his social media platforms. I will be linking them. So if you're watching this, you'll see the links.
Amazing.
And he's very, very reachable, very humble guy. If you need any kind of advice, anything at all,
I
listen
reply to
to
all my messages. I promise.
he does. He does. Listen to his stuff. His stuff has really powerful lyrics behind it, and he does a really good job with the music. So
Definitely.
go ahead.
I have a lot of,
check it out.
sorry to cut you off, but I have a lot of content coming up. This quarantine is giving me a lot of time to create and try new things. So please be on the lookout for new stuff. If I haven't made something you like yet, I promise I'm going to make something you like very soon.
That's awesome. I can feel the passion and the energy. Thank you so much, Ali, for being on
Thank you so
Discover with
much.
Sbenati. It's been a pleasure.
It's been
I really wish you all the success. I hope that we get to redo this sometime in the future to see your progress and where things move after the
Hopefully
quarantine.
in person.
Yes, definitely in person, definitely. All right, my man, you take care. Thank you,
You as well.
everyone, for tuning in to Discover with Sbenati. This has been an amazing episode, and stay tuned for another episode where we discover more.